The date is November 21st, 2012, and it is Weird Build Wednesday here on your daily dose of D&D. It's Weird Build Wednesday here on your daily dose of D&D, and this is another thing that I've been way excited about, because making extremely weird, kitschy builds, kitschy being my word for something really strange, is one of the things that I really like about playing Dungeons & Dragons that you can't really do, you know, in World of Warcraft, for example, because it's the huge example, when, you know, there's just a couple of different builds for each of the classes. You can be an ice sorcerer, you can be a fire sorcerer. It's been a while since I played. But in Dungeons & Dragons, you can play anything. There's several thousand feats, several thousand Paragon Paths, you know, 50-odd Epic Destinies, 52 races, like 20-odd classes, and just, there's a bunch of stuff. And so today, I was pondering on what exactly I wanted to do, and I wanted something that'd be very, you know, kind of simple for a first-time player. So I have here's the character sheet, because I print off character sheets and I waste paper and ink and stuff, but I like having it. This is the character. I build these towards level 16, because that's the level that I normally start play. The Bow Slayer can actually, unlike most of my other builds, the Bow Slayer is a build that works at level 1. But with each level, with each feat that you get, with each power that you get, with each of the magic items, it just keeps getting better. The books that you'll need for this build are, first and most importantly, Heroes of Fallen Lands, book 1 of the Essentials line. And that contains the fighter subclass called the Slayer. The second most important book, and one of the things that makes the build a little weird and a lot of fun, is Player Handbook 3. Because we need access to the Seeker. A lot of the feats, most of the feats are found in Heroes of Fallen Lands, or Player Handbook, and Player Handbooks 1, 2, and 3. The items are found mostly in Adventurer's Vault, or Adventurer's Vault 2. And again, they're not item essential like you would have for, say, a charge build or something. They just add some very nice touches, you know, like a little garnish on top of a nice dish. To start with the attributes, the most important thing we need is Dex. The thing that makes this build work is one of the Slayer class features that's found in the Fallen Lands book. And this feature is really cool. What it does is it adds your dexterity modifier with a little tiny bit extra onto your basic attacks. Ranged basic attacks key off of dexterity. So when your character would throw a knife or a rock, you would roll numbers based off of your dexterity. For a Slayer, when what he throws is a weapon, he gets to add his dexterity modifier to it a second time. So, how do we use this? Any ranged attack that we make allows us to add our dexterity modifier on it twice. So, for our attributes, we need to max out our dexterity modifier. For the other numbers that you'll need for this build, you need at least a 15 constitution by the time you take a certain feat, if you want to go crossbow. There are serious arguments to go crossbow, and there are no downside to crossbowing in this build, except the only real downside is instead of a d12 for your damage die, you'll get a d10, and I think the crossbow is worth it. Unless you have something else you want to do with this character, crossbow does eat 2 feats that are a little bit unnecessary, that you could probably get away with, though it does add a little bit of damage. I built mine with crossbow in mind, so it needs a level 15, because there's only 1 5 there, 15 Constitution, and you will also need 13, see, yeah, that was 10, 13 Wisdom for another feat that you will need, and that's it for prerequisites, at least for your attributes. For races, the most important thing is to get that +2 to dexterity. There are a total of 26 races, and even half that use or have the potential to get that dexterity bonus to push you up as high as you can go. 16 of those also can play up, it's not necessarily guaranteed, on one of those secondary numbers you need, allowing you to mess around with the numbers a little bit more. This Bow Slayer is built as an elf because it gives me the dexterity and the wisdom boosts I need for my feats, as well as one of the coolest racial powers they have in D&D, which is elven accuracy. As a Slayer, you're not as unmissable as a thief is, but you're pretty close. And there will be a couple of things that you'll be able to do by the end of this build, or at least the end of my build, that if you were going to miss, you're not. So I built as an elf. Drow is a good thing to do. Looking down the list that I have, humans are super ubiquitous. You can do it with Eldrin. You could be, I love the pixie race, and so this technically qualifies numerically, and you can just be extremely deadly accurate. You can do this with a halfling if you want, which makes a lot more sense with a crossbow, because then you're holding it like a shotgun, and you gotta load it. Because, let me tell you, I haven't told you guys this yet, but by the end of the Bow Slayer build, you can kill a lot of things. Slayers excel in straight-up damage, and the Bow Slayer is no different. Feats would be the next thing that we do. So, I selected 8 out of the 10 possible feats for level 16. 2 of those are crossbow specific. One of them allows you to use your dexterity in melee combat. This is entitled Melee Training Dexterity, and it is extremely useful for this melee build, because if a melee guy gets up close to you, you can pull out a sword and hit him. Because as a Slayer, you get something called Quick Swap, which allows you to change weapons and be able to do it. And there's 2 different versions of this feat. One out of Player Handbook 1, which sucks, and one out of Heroes of Fallen Lands, which is much better. They're effectively the same, allowing you to use a different stat for your melee basic attack, except the one out of Fallen Lands gives you some damage off of your dexterity modifier. So go with that one. And that's, if you're able to use Slayers, you're able to use this feat, or ought to be able to use this feat, because it comes from the same book. That was our level 1 choice. Our level 2 choice is Bow Expertise. Now, you can go with Crossbow Expertise, but Bow Expertise gives you a conditional damage bonus when you're attacking a guy who's off by his onesie. This just gives you an additional tiered damage that gives you a little nice present, and the crossbow counts as a bow, so you get that attack anyway. The thing that Crossbow Expertise gives you, I believe, is you get to ignore partial concealment, and that's never come up in one of my campaigns. If your DM uses partial concealment, that might be an option for you. Check it out anyway. I believe that one's also in the Heroes of Fallen Lands. And, make your pick. Bow Expertise is where I went for that a little bit of conditional damage. Our level 4 feat is Weapon Focused Crossbow. This gives you a straight up tiered feat bonus to damage. 1, 2, 3. Simple. Our level 6 feat is Weapon Proficiency Superior Crossbow. And this is where you would have to make the choice between crossbow and swapping this feat out for a great bow. Great bow would give you a D12. This gives me a D10. This is really where you have to pick. I said before that I prefer the crossbow for additional damage, and I do, because I think that you get more damage off these conditionals than you would off that measly die size. The level 8 feat is Speed Loader. This feat gets rid of one of Crossbow's disadvantages, allowing you to load as a free action instead of a minor action, meaning your crossbow fires about the same speed as a regular bow. It's an optional feat if you don't want the crossbow. It's an optional feat anyway if you have something else that's a little bit, more fun for your character. There's a magical item that I'll talk about later that will nix this feat. You won't need it anymore. So feel free to replace it. The level 10 feat that I selected is our multi-class feat, and that's important. It doesn't really feel like a weird build to me until I've multi-classed. This time, I'm multi-classing into Seeker. The Primal Sharpshooter is the name of the feat, and this is where you need your Player Handbook 3, because this is the feat where things get fun. The Primal Sharpshooter itself gives you a skill training and a cool power that you can use once a day, that if you miss with your crossbow bolt, instead of just having it hit the ground, you can actually have it hit the guy that you was standing behind him. Effectively, you make an attack against another target, so it looks like you did it on purpose. That's kind of cool. It's called Inevitable Shot. Level 11 is where things get fun, because multi-classing Seeker qualifies us for a feat entitled Primal Eye. I can't remember if this one actually needs to be Paragon tier, but I did it there anyway, because I wanted to get the other stuff out of the way. And what this does, and this is the one that you'll want as soon as you can get it, it allows you to stack your dexterity modifier onto your ranged basic attacks. What does this mean? Our dexterity modifier is put on there thrice. Now, if you've, been munchkining your character like you should, at level 16 you should have a 24 dexterity, which means that you have a 7 modifier, which means that your base, ranged basic attack, before you add enhancements, before you add any other feats, before you add anything, is 21. My level 12 feat is called Steady Shooter, and this is one of the important ones for the crossbow side of this build. It requires 15 Constitution for you to qualify for, and if you haven't moved since the end of your last turn, you get +3 damage to your shot, and that's pretty sweet. On to powers. This build doesn't require a lot of power choice because Slayers don't have a lot of powers to start with. They do have Power Strike, which sadly doesn't work for this build. It specifies melee attacks, and so you can't get that extra die of damage, which is why I think a D10 is fine for the build. It does allow, however, when something gets close and you do the quick swap to your melee, you do get to use Power Strike for that, so there's no reason why you should be attacking with only one weapon when you're doing a melee. The only power that really matters, Slayers get a bunch of stances, and there's like 1 or 2 that let you shift, so if you're building a shifting build, where you take a shot and then shift far away, or shift a little bit, I don't know. If you want to do something shifty, there's stances that let you do that. But the important one that you definitely want to take is Battle Wrath. This one specifies basic attacks with a weapon, and that totally counts when you're using a crossbow. So this gives you, at level at Paragon tier, you get +3 damage, and that's important. There wasn't a lot of choice for Paragon path. I went with a secret path called Crimson Hunter, which gives you an additional +1 to hit, and lets you crit on a 19 or 20 with a ranged basic attack. Gives you a little bit of speed. It's not great. There really isn't anything for this build. If you find something that's better from this build, please let me know. I love this build, and I would like to see it get as good as they can. Epic Destinies, I built it at level 16, but you do have to keep an eye forward. Anything that boosts your dexterity gives you effectively 3 extra damage. So that needs to be your main goal. But check around for the other stuff that you have going on with with those Epic Destinies. There might be stuff, there might not. I don't know. I didn't look that far into it. And finally, no D&D 4th edition character would be complete without talking magic items. There's only one essential magical item, and that's called the Bracers of Archery. This is a tiered thing, so there's one in Heroic, Paragon, and Epic, and it just gives you a straight up damage bonus, item damage bonus, when attacking with a bow or a crossbow. And so, at level 16 one, the Paragon tier 1 gives you a +4 damage. And I assume that you can find it pretty easily. There are a bunch of crossbows that I scoured the internets for, and by a bunch I mean 4. I'm assuming you have at least a +4 weapon, so all of these are +4. The first enchantment is called Swift Shot. I should probably read it. The first enchantment is called Swift Shot, and this lets you, its property is you get to reload the crossbow as a free action, which gets rid of the feat, as I talked about before. It also has a minor action daily where you get to make a shot, and that's kind of cool. Sometimes you just need that extra shot on your turn. The second enchantment is called Impaling. When you hit somebody, this one's, just okay, but when you drop a foe, you get to make a ranged basic attack against another creature adjacent to the guy. So it's as if your bolt goes through him and then hits somebody else. I don't know if that worked visually right there, but it's pretty cool. If you're if you're fighting a lot of easy foes, it'd be something to do, because it lets you get 2 kills to the place of 1, or 2 attacks in the place of 1. Rebounding crossbow has an encounter power. When you miss something, you get to make another attack. So it's like the inevitable shot. It lets you fire the bolt, it bounces around him and then hits somebody else. Sure, looks cool. Maybe it's built into your character. I don't know. I prefer not to miss. My favorite crossbow out of here is called the Bolt Shard crossbow, and as a standard action, as a daily, he can main a ranged attack against a close blast 5 each creature. And so, you know, when that horde of guys comes against you, you wield your crossbow, it glitters with magical power, and you go, and the horde of zombies just collapses. In fact, they even get pushed too, and that's cool. I like that. So that's my personal favorite. So those are the magical items, and you know, when we go and we look at our power page and we look at our ranged basic attack, we have 3 conditional things that we have to throw on. First, we need to be in our battle rest stance. Second, the target needs to be away from others, so we can't get cover from people. Third, we need to have not moved, and we need to be taking the shot. Blam! We get 20... That's totally not a crossbow noise. We get plus 24 versus AC on our die roll, which I was comparing it to my sister's thief without actually looking at the thief, but that's pretty high. It's 3 higher than my bard gets, though my bard attacks a secondary defense. So plus 24 versus AC, pretty decent. And then the damage is 1d10 plus, and if all 3 of those conditionals apply, the damage comes out to 44 with a ranged basic attack. This is the attack that a warlord gives. This is the attack that you can get as an opportunity action if you take certain paragon paths. This is a freaking amazing attack, and that's what makes it worthy of a weird build. So, the Bow Slayer, there's a lot more stats that you can figure out. There's a couple more feat options that are available to you. There's a lot more you can do with it. If you do anything with it, please leave me a comment and let me know. So, yeah, Bow Slayer, check it out. There'll be a link placed down. I don't know if it's there yet when you're watching this video. I'll get to it eventually. It's going to link you to my website where there'll be a downloadable PDF that will have a list of all those feats and where to find them. It might have more things like damage and, you know, I don't know. I haven't worked all of that out yet. Sorry this video comes out so late tonight. I don't want that yet. So, that was the Bow Slayer. If you click on the link below that might not be there yet, sorry, working on it. Bug me if it's not there. There will be a link to my website where there will be a PDF that you can download that talks about the Bow Slayer, lists off the feats and the books and stuff like that. I intend to get that up eventually, and I intend to do it for all of our weird builds. If you have a weird build that you'd like to see, please leave a comment for that below. Welcome! It's World Building Wednesday here at the DM's Corner. This is going to be a shorter segment than a lot of my DM's Corners because world building goes on pretty long because you have to go through all the little detail-y stuff. This segment is just going to be a thought off the top of my head, a little 1 or 2 minute thing about something related to world building. And if people have questions, please leave me comments asking them so I can answer them in this segment. Today's thought on world building is on racism. Now, racism has a lot of bad connotations, but it's important in the D&D world because people don't just play, you know, humans, whether they be white or black. That is not what this is talking about. This is talking about that people are playing these weird creatures. They're playing elves and dwarves and dragonborn and kobolds and halflings and so many weird and impossible creatures. How do these towns react? You know, if you're in an entirely human village, which, you know, there are a lot in D&D because humans are the fantasy cockroach. We are impossible to kill, we breed like rabbits, and we're everywhere. And we live in a lot of horrible places in a lot of these fantasy worlds. Places that the elves left years ago. So, yeah, there are always human settlements around. That's normally what you go to. So when you come to these human settlements, how do these guys react when they see a minotaur? Now, in our world, this is changing because we have a minotaur who's pretty famous. And so people, you know, see a minotaur and they think, ah, it's Sir Tanith! Yay! But what happens when they see a tiefling? Tieflings look like devils. And in fact, it's part of their ancestral history that they have a bit of devil blood in them. When a village sees a tiefling, are they going to say, oh, there's a new person, hello, new person? Or are they going to say, ah, it's a devil, kill it! And then charge at it with like pitchforks and torches, because that's the only weapons that peasants are proficient in. What happens when you're in an elf-only society, you're a tiefling-only society, and a human shows up. Is he treated differently because he doesn't have horns? Or because he has those pitiful round ears? Is round ears an elf slang for human? There's a lot of things going on. And you know, when you look at interactions between different racial groups, there should be slurs that people give. And, you know, a lot of how people interact depends on what's around. In my world that I'm building, there is going to be a settlement of tieflings that is in an active volcano that they use magic to physically hold the lava at bay. Imagine an underwater city, but in lava. And tieflings have innate fire resistance as part of their heritage. So tieflings can live in here and breathe the air just fine. It tastes awesome to them. Ah, I love the smell of sulfur in the morning. It really invigorates the lungs. But a human who comes in, well, when he stands outside of the doubly protected homes, well, he starts getting dehydrated and really needs water. Sorry, Jen, I know you kind of complained about that, but I had to. And so maybe a human even takes damage when he's outside, and so he doesn't want to live here, he doesn't want to be here. And this is just how but in the colonies outside of this lava, this is where I was going. You know, they've seen tieflings. They're the weird guys who live in the volcano. And so when a tiefling comes down, their perceptions of a tiefling is based on the people that they know before, not on what he looks like now. And so this is something that's important for DMs to keep in mind. Look at your players. I'm in 2 different groups. One of them does not have a human, though we do have a Shadar Kai, which look kind of human, or kind of like a drow.
Quiet.
Yeah. This is my sister. She plays a drow. Or a Shadar Kai, if you're not Tana. And in my other group, the closest thing we have to a human is an elf. Everyone else is like way different. And so it's important as a DM to look at the groups that you're look at the races of the group that you are DMing for, and decide whether these are monsters or whether these are pitiful, you know, pale reflections of the local villager's race. So that's my thoughts today. Last minute wrap up here, guys. I am extremely sorry about this thing going out a day late, effectively, is probably when it's actually going out. I got caught up in having a day off and sleeping till noon and playing video games and stuff. I also took a lot more I also did a lot more retakes than I normally do, except I don't think I just did one right there. Because I have the option now, and that's, you do videos differently when you have the option to do a retake. So hopefully this is a much shorter video and a much more edited video, and it looks nicer and all of that. I'm sorry it posted so late. Hopefully tomorrow's won't. I think that's all I got for you guys today. This is Mad Matt Wonkow on your daily dose of D&D. It was Wednesday, November 21st, 2012. Peace out.